Hey guys, I'm going to show you in this tutorial basically how to make a really simple animated billboard or lightboard in Fallout 4. Seen a lot of people have problems setting these type of things up. They're really simple actually, and I'll show you a method here to do a real simple two-scene animated lightboard. You can take this principle a little bit further and do multiple stages. You're not just limited to two, but I'll show you how to get started with two stages, and hopefully you'll get the idea from there, and I'll give you a few little tips I learned along the way here. First, I'm just going to go through what I've already got set up. I've got a 3x3 light board here, 9 lights all together. I got a large generator here to power the lights. I've got a switch here, a master main switch that I've got connected to my power supply for my lights. I'm going to use that for basically resetting the timing. Anytime you put one of these systems together, it's great to have a master power switch, so that if for some reason the lights get out of sequence, or you're done building and you don't want to disconnect power lines to make them reset, you can just hit this switch and it'll just reset the sequences for you. You'll see that I have one single solitary terminal here connected to its own generator. The reason why I have it connected to its own little generator is because you don't want or need multiple terminals to program your switches. In fact, you don't need terminals in your light system at all. Your switches are actually programmable, and when you program it, it will remember your settings. So if you have a interval switch with 5 seconds on, 5 seconds off, you disconnect it and put it into your system, it will still indeed be 5 seconds on and 5 seconds off. You do not need terminals in your light system at all. In fact, I would stay away from it. One of the things about these is I've seen a lot of people say, oh, well, I've got all these terminals connecting, controlling all these switches, but I can only control one of them. Well, that's because when you connect one of these to a system, it tries to find all of the devices that are connected to it. If you'll notice, if you have one of each switch and a light and everything, when you go and turn it on, it's going to have the whole list of things for you to modify, and it doesn't matter where it's connected in the system. It can be connected straight to the power generator. It doesn't matter. It will find them. And because the other cool thing about this terminal is not only will it program things and they'll stay programmed, but you can program multiple things at one time. So if you have a terminal in your system or multiple terminals in your system, and you go to the one that works and you're thinking that you're just going to change the interval on one of your pylons, you're crazy. Whichever type of pylon it is you're changing, when you change it, you will be changing all of them. So stay away from having those terminals in your light system. You don't want them, you don't need them, they're just a hassle. So what we'll do is we'll get started here. I'm going to need to get 3 switches all together. I need one delayed on switch. So we'll go here to delayed on, and I'll go ahead and set it right next to my terminal and start programming it right away. Connect it there. And then, whoops, I didn't connect it. Sorry. Go back in here and connect to my power. Alright, so let's go and let's program this delayed on switch here. And we're just going to set it for 1 second. You'll see why here in a minute. I'm also going to set my interval switches to 1 minute as well. But okay, so my delayed on is set. Let's go ahead and remove this wire. Grab it, set it back here, and we'll just set it back here out of the way. Let's go over here, and now we need 2 interval switches. Those guys right there, and I'll just go ahead and put both of them there. As I said before, we can program both of these guys at the same time, so let's go ahead and connect them up. Exit out of here, and let's program them. So we'll go to our interval switch control and set the on time to 1 second. And let's go back to our menu and set the off time to 1 second. Alright. Exit out of here. Let's go back into editing mode here. Remove the wires. And let's place our switches. This is actually all the hardware we're really going to need for this project here. We'll set this one over here. And let's grab this one. And we'll set it over here. And now this delayed on switch, it needs to go with one of these. It doesn't matter which one. It will matter possibly in your animation, but when you see how it works, you'll be able to figure that out. I'm going to put it on the other side of this guy here. And now I'm ready to start wiring everything together. So first, let's go ahead and plug the main power in. And we're going to run one to this interval switch. And we're going to run one to the delayed on switch back there. And then we're going to run one from the delayed on switch to the interval switch. And so now we've got powered our two interval switches. It's time to connect them to our lights. I'm going to basically just do an X pattern and a diamond pattern and have them rotate in between both. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this guy here. Whoops, didn't mean to grab it. And let's make him the diamond. So I'm going to put one there. And I'm going to put one there. And I'm going to put one there. And I'm going to put one here. Now you ask, well, I can just connect these straight on the back and I only need to connect one wire to my panel and then just run them to each light. This is true. And in this situation, it's actually beneficial to do it that way. But I've been bit a few times in some more complicated projects. I'll explain here in a little bit as to why that can be a dangerous practice, especially if you're wanting to reuse one light in several different scenes. It can get a little tricky, but I'll explain that here in a minute. Let's take our other pylon here and let's connect it up, and I'm going to make an X out of this guy here. So we'll just run all these wires here. And like I say, we're making an X pattern. Okay, so now I have my X set up on one switch and my diamond set up on the other switch. And my timing's off a little bit here. My delayed on didn't get set correctly. Let me go back here and grab it. Whoops. Delete you. Delete you. So let's take you back over here to the computer. Terminal, and let's hook you up. It's curious as to why that didn't hold its value. It looked like it went half a second or 3/4 of a second. I might have just lagged up and tried to press the buttons too quick. So go back to the delayed control switch, and let's choose 1 second. Okay. Actually, everything was perfectly fine. I'm an idiot. All I needed to do was reset the system, because when I connected it, I took for granted the last time I did this that it was timed just perfectly. I set it up just perfectly such that everything lined up and everything was perfect. This time it didn't. I did not need to reprogram that. So we'll hook this guy back up. Alright. So all I really need to do is come over here. The whole reason for having this switch, turn it on, and there we go. We have an alternating pattern here. We can use the same lights for different scenes, but this is where that caveat comes in. If you wire these, like say I was going to do one that did a vertical stripe, a vertical stripe, a vertical stripe, and then a horizontal stripe, a horizontal stripe, and a horizontal stripe for an animation of 6 scenes. Problem with that was I found out that when I wired these guys together, anything else that's wired to that and that leads back to a pole or a switch that's turned on will relay that to whatever else is on connected to that pole. So if this was on and it was connected to this guy here, and it was also connected to these 3 lights in a vertical pattern, and these lights were connected in a horizontal pattern, if this switch was on when this switch turned on, the power would go down both legs, and then would jump back up to this switch and then get redistributed to everything that switch is connected to. So one thing you want to do is make sure that your whichever pole or pylon or switch is off the longest, have that the closest to your lights. Because like I said, if you go to use one light for multiple scenes, you'll find out that if you're connected to 2 different poles, if one pole's on and the other pole's on, you have just sent power to everything that both of those poles are connected to. So you'll not get the results that you want. It'll look funny. Lights will turn on when you don't want them to turn on. So that's one thing you can pull out your hair when you want to do a more complicated example. And you will pull out your hair trying to figure out a perfect way to get it to work without having that power bleed over to other poles and get redistributed where you don't want it. But basically, there you go. As you can see, there's not one single terminal plugged in here. Don't need them. It's just 3 switches. That's it. And so basically, if you haven't figured it out by now, the delay switch, it starts off and turns on after 1 cycle of the first interval switch. So 1 second, it's on, and then it turns off. But this comes on after 1 second and turns this on and puts it 1 second off. So therefore, you have a perfect rotating pattern here. You can expand this and make it 4 scenes, 3 scenes, 10 scenes if you wanted. You just add another delayed on and another interval switch, and you're good to go. Actually, I'll show you an example of that right over here. So this is one with actually 4 scenes. As you can see, the F comes on, the O comes on, the 4 comes on, and then the background lights up. And this is basically created with the exact same setup that I used in the example, except just taking a few scenes out further. Yes, I was too lazy to change my F to red. Don't care. So I'll hop up here and show you that really it's basically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 poles all together. This one actually has a master timer up front, a master interval switch, where I've set the on time to the length that for the length of time that it takes for the whole series to play out, plus a second or two to blank out the screen and then start it all over again. So this will stay on for the length of the show, if you will, and then when it turns off, it resets all the other switches. And then when it comes back on, the switches come back on in sequence. Everything works the way it's supposed to. As you can see, I do have one power pole right here that's just a pole. That's lighting up my background. I do have a switch hooked up to it, though. It's right here. But it's timed with a delay to only come on at its point. I don't care that it stays on, because when my master switch goes off, it resets it. So it's not a big deal. But there you have it. As you can see, no terminals. I do have a terminal here for programming purposes, but as you will see, it is connected to its own little generator. Keep it away from your main system. Now, as you can also see, my main system is all daisy chained. Another thing that people were worried about is, do I have to have dedicated generators, or can I daisy chain them all together? You can daisy chain them all together so long as you're not trying to control everything with terminals. You don't need terminals. Keep them out of your system. It simplifies life exponentially, because otherwise you would need your own generator to power each and every one of these terminals. Otherwise, you have the situation where you have one terminal that's trying to control everything. But once again, you don't need your terminals in your system. Keep them out. Just there is no point whatsoever into having them in here. You're just complicating your life. So there you go. It's a really super simple example of doing animations. You can take this much farther, and it does get much more complicated as you try and accomplish more different kind of effects. If you guys liked the video and found it useful, maybe I'll throw together another one with some more complicated examples. Maybe some people can shoot me some ideas. I am not an artistic person. I cannot come up with ideas for cool looking boards. My background is in the analytical, not the creative. It did come in handy in a little bit in figuring out the switches and timing and everything, and the digital logic, if you will, behind it. So there you go. If you guys like it, hit the like button, and to get enough likes, I'll go ahead and make some more, or if you got some suggestions, go ahead and throw them in the comments box. Thanks guys, and good luck with your creations.